Дмитрий One is we will discuss normal and regulatory base for preservation and restoration of cultural heritage sites. We will understand what types of activities and work the volunteers are authorized to perform. We will now hear Dmitry Tuzov from the College of Archaeology. He is a member of the steering committee of the Preservation of Cultural Heritage Site initiative. Also, today we will speak about creative economics and economy and how it influences volunteers. We will also hear an editor and copywriter who will explain how to use your personal brand and write texts that will engage your community and provide your volunteers with mission, with understanding and meaning. So, lecture number 1, we will discuss the legal aspects of restoration of cultural heritage sites by volunteers. Dmitry, the floor is yours. Hello, dear friends. I'm very happy to be here, and I think it's a very honored task to speak in front of such a wonderful audience. For the second year in a row, we're having this event and we exchange opinions and experience about preservation of cultural sites as part of the international volunteer camps. So the topic of today is the current legislation that regulates restoration of cultural heritage sites. I believe it is also very important. This is a relevant subject matter. I'm sure the audience is interested and may have experience working as volunteers of culture, or maybe they're going to become such, because we live in the legally protected country. Anything that we do is regulated and governed by certain laws and statutes. It is important that our actions, our desire to preserve cultural heritage sites and historic monuments do not contradict with the law and be legitimate. All in all, the recent situation is like this. In the past decade, a lot of changes occurred in the legitimate area, and actually the law set forth some framework for such activity, for volunteer activity, for preservation of cultural and historic sites. I should tell you from the very start that I'm not a lawyer, and I'm familiar with the law because in my volunteer activity and in my teaching activity in the college, we deal with various activities, events related to restoration, preservation, or conservation of certain cultural and heritage sites. That's why today I will speak about the regulatory framework of the Russian Federation, legal and regulatory framework, and actions that are legitimate, and things to talk about the things you should take care of. So let's have a look at the legal and regulatory base and discuss what types of laws and statutes apply to our activity. in this country. The main law in the area of preservation, use, and government protection of cultural heritage sites is the Federal Law number 73 FZ of 2002, and the name is exactly like this. So this law resonates with the provisions of the Russian Constitution, the main law of this country. In the subject matter of this law, it says that the law governs preservation, use, and popularization of cultural heritage sites, and aimed at executing a constitutional law of everyone to access to the cultural sites, and a responsibility of preserving cultural and historic sites, and also exercising the people's right to preserve and develop its cultural heritage, protection of cultural environment, sources of information, development of culture. So out of this long sentence, I would like to derive the following. What is important about this? That each citizen of the Russian Federation has the right to access to cultural heritage sites and responsibility to take care of the country cultural and historic heritage. So on the one hand, we have rights with respect to our cultural heritage, and on the other hand, we cannot really say that this activity, this area, is basically refers to everyone, because every one of us is supposed to preserve and take care of the cultural heritage. So, as volunteers, we also have the right and the responsibility. So we need to build our activities on the basis of this law. So moving on, the law also confirms that the cultural heritage sites are of unique value for the people, and is an integral part of the global cultural heritage. So our law on cultural heritage and cultural heritage sites corresponds with the international law and very similar to it, and of course we will discuss it. Most importantly, the law emphasizes the high value of cultural heritage sites. We understand that cultural heritage is important. This is something that we need to preserve, to value, and not to lose. Also, the law says that the Russian Federation guarantees preservation of cultural heritage sites in the interest of current and future generation of the Russian Federation. This is also important because we understand that the monuments were created by our predecessors in the past centuries, and they have become part of our present life. And this is certainly a letter to the future, a message to the future. This is the heritage that we need to bring over to future generation. This is the essence, this is the essential capital of cultural assets that contains messages to the future generations. Of course, this is legal language, but the meaning is obvious. The meaning reveals the importance of preservation of cultural heritage sites. From the practical philosophical point of view, the law is quite extensive and will not be able to discuss all the details of it, but I call upon everyone who is going to work in this area to read this law. It is available in the public domain. Today, I will focus on some important aspects related to our volunteer activity. So, all in all, Article 1 of the law sets forth the subject of regulation and the object of regulation. And these are 4 separate blocks of legal relations. So the law governs preservation, use, popularization, and government protection of cultural heritage sites. So basically, it covers the full range of actions, relations to the cultural heritage sites. And then further down, the law details these 4 areas. And again, today we will have no time to discuss them all. Let's consider some general principles of protection of cultural heritage sites. The federal law, and also if any one of us is asked what is a cultural heritage site, what is cultural heritage, there will be a lot of interpretations and definitions and versions offered. At the same time, there is a legal definition, legal answer to this question. So cultural heritage sites, monuments of history and culture, are sites, tangible assets, real estate assets, including art, sculpture, and other items of culture, which are of value from the historic, cultural, archaeological, aesthetic, or anthropological point of view, and which are the witnesses of the past centuries and civilizations, demonstrating the development of humankind. So I guess all our versions basically are reflected in this extensive definition and comprehensive definition. And the law has adopted this definition. Also, relations of ownership, basically ownership rights are also governed by other laws of the Russian Federation. So if a site is referred to as the cultural heritage site, so this site is governed by federal law. So, for example, as to the ownership rights, title to those cultural heritage sites, those rights are also governed by the civil law of the Russian Federation. If we discuss construction of such heritage sites, then the law on construction will apply to this activity. But what type of cultural heritage sites do we have in this country, and what can we discuss? So we have provided a definition already, but there are levels or grades of those cultural heritage sites. So there is the highest grade, the national level, and this would be cultural heritage sites of the federal level. These are the sites that feature cultural and material value and special meaning for the history and culture of the Russian Federation. So these are the most outstanding monuments of culture and history. And we will discuss them as well, and how the Russian and international law relate to each other, because those outstanding cultural heritage sites may also be part of the UNESCO cultural heritage. The second level is the regional level. They have special meaning for the culture and history of the subject of the Russian Federation.
That is, every subject has a list of such objects. And finally, the objects of cultural importance of the municipal level. So this kind of grading has its practical application. Firstly, it's about having control functions, and it's managed either by the Ministry of Culture in the federal regions or subjects, or in municipal sites. And naturally, federal objects are funded from the federal budget, and municipal objects from municipal or local budgets. Article 7 of the federal law determines the rights of the Russian citizens and foreign citizens in their use and promotion of cultural heritage sites, together with their preservation and together with the access towards the sites. So this object register, that's an important notion. So all the cultural heritage sites or objects have this status, and this law is applied to them. And the procedure of including such an object into the register is determined by the sub-law. And for us, for our volunteering activity, we need to understand this difference. If the object has the status of cultural heritage object, then it is covered by the law and by all the sub-laws and norms and regulations connected to that. And if an object is more ancient or more available, but it's not in the register, and I must say that the object register is objects in some arts objects. So you have to understand that, and it's published on the website of the Ministry of Culture. But you need to verify our actions, checking the register. Because if it's in the register, then all of our activities are governed by the law and controlled by the territorial bodies of the Ministry of Culture. In Moscow, it's inheritance department, and well, in other cities they are called differently. But in every city, in every region, they have such an organization that have to track and monitor all the activities connected with the sites. So also the federal law number 73 controls and governs the activities of the respectful authorities and respecting authorities and bodies. So that's what I've just mentioned. Also, funding the events dedicated to preservation and promoting these objects. And there are also some subsidies. There is also information on some subsidies who do that, and this is an important point to remember. State cultural and historical expertise. Oh, that's a broad notion, and for that expertise or expert review to be carried out, they need to be provided with certain information, and this law also governs all kinds of activities like restoration activities, construction works, and we must say that in the law there is a special article that states that the work on preservation, restoration, and conservation has to be carried out by the licensed organizations authorized by a respective body, including the physical entities. And that's important because this procedure is not an easy one. And very often volunteers don't have such a certification, and volunteering organizations are often not licensed organizations. And later on, we'll talk about that as well. So we'll be talking about how can we abide by the law. Also, this law regulates the ownership and use of cultural heritage sites. Some determines special legal features, and it determines the responsibilities and liabilities. So, as I've mentioned, this law is quite voluminous and also an important thing to know for us is another law, the law number 54 on the on museums of the Russian Federation. Naturally, volunteers work with immobile and mobile objects, and a lot of such objects are museum objects. And understanding how the work is structured on preserving such collections and so on is quite important. I won't be going into details right now on this law because it's about museums. It's more, so to say, closed sphere. But nowadays, in many museums, they organize some ways of interaction with volunteers. But I want just to mention that this law also has a provision saying that the physical safety of the museum objects and restoration is allowed by the people who have been certified by the respective bodies according to the rules established in the federal authorities. So there is this reference. So if we start carrying out some actions with museum objects, we need to be certified. So, and some serious processes have to be carried out by professionals. You can't argue with that. But on the other hand side, we need to have some space for the volunteers to be able to help the museums. And I already mentioned that Russian legislation corresponds to the international legislation, regulations, and norms. I'll just enumerate them, just mention them for you to get the idea. As of now, we have the following system of international laws on heritage preservation. Hague Convention, and in the 1970s, the Parisian Convention was passed, preventing stealth and illegal trade in cultural values. And recently, in the last century, transporting cultural heritage from a country to a country was not regulated. And finally, in the last century, it was sorted. In 1972, in the General UNESCO, in the General Conference of UNESCO, a convention was passed on preserving the global heritage. And The Russian Federation joined this convention in 1989. Why is this convention important? It defines the notion of cultural heritage protection, and it determines global policy um, preserving this heritage and including the preservation of this heritage into cultural planning programs. And the list of World Heritage objects is part of it, and from our country we have around 20 objects. Then Venus chart was passed in 1964 in Venice, and this is the basic document that determines the methodology of preserving and so on. Then chart on preserving the gardens, then Washington chart on preserving historical cities, and there are many other documents that you have to be aware of that do not contradict our Russian legislation. And as I've already mentioned, during the later recent years, we have some norms appearing to do with volunteers. Starting from the 1st of May 2018, the law on charity and volunteering was passed. That was signed on the 5th of February 2018. We had a law before that, and but this law governs these processes under new economic conditions. We know that we are taking part in volunteering activities, and there are more and more of them happening, not only about cultural heritage sites and so on. And this kind of activities leads to interacting with the medical sphere, labor sphere, and so on. And this law was done. And this law resolved a lot of problems and issues, and it also determined the documents that you need to have. So the new law specifies in a more definite way all the participants of these legal processes. So the volunteers can receive support in the form of food, clothes, PPE, transportation costs coverage, and insurance, life and health insurance, psychological help, and reimbursement of their costs. Information support, methodological support, and so on. All this is covered by the law. This law also determines remuneration for the labor taking part in programs and so on. So it's on volunteering and charitable activity, but still the award and remunerations are determined there. Also, documents are specified. They have to govern relations with the volunteers. The law gives a more detailed description of the contract that has to be concluded with a volunteer. For instance, it determines the reimbursement of the costs that I've already mentioned. But this contract doesn't include anything on the anything to do with the labor, like vacation, days off, sick leaves, and so on, because it's not a it's a voluntary activity. And this law introduces two new legal notions: organizer of volunteering activities and volunteer organizations. So, volunteering organizer status can be received by the non-governmental organizations and even physical entities. And the law determines that such organizations can receive support from the authorities, that they can inform the citizens on the possibility of becoming a volunteer. Um, they can promote their activity, and they can count on support determined by the legislation of the Russian Federation. So, what changes for the state authorities? They have the legal right of involving or inviting volunteers, and that's a new thing. The state was not interacting with the volunteers, but now there is a legal foundation on that, and the law uh, allows creating the programs for volunteers, creating information systems on volunteering, and also the document allows the state authorities to create their own volunteer support, work in cultural heritage objects preservation. Natalia, please tell me, should I wrap it up or I still have some time? Yeah, you can carry on, and we have questions from our viewers. We have around 15 minutes, and I'll ask the questions later. Okay, then I'll give you more details on that decree on volunteering activities in cultural site preservation. So, as I've already mentioned, this decree is a sub-law under the 73rd federal law, and it regulates the activities around the cultural objects that are part of the register. And if this object is not part of the register, then you need to understand that the this sub-law is not applicable. And here, very often difficulties arise, sometimes the moral ones or historical, cultural ones. So what do we do with these objects if they are of value? They have to be preserved. Well then, dear friends, here I think we need to use the experts' opinions, creating some consultations groups and so on, not following the law, but following the opinion, expert opinion.
On the one hand, there are a lot of cultural heritage sites which are included in the register, and we're supposed to preserve them. With that, we know cases when volunteers or just people who care for cultural heritage and not trained to perform restoration, they have their own understanding on how to preserve a cultural site, cultural heritage site, and they may cause serious damage to such cultural monument. We even know cases when cultural heritage sites included in the register, especially in the regions, really need some urgent restoration. For example, in the Russian north, there are a lot of wooden churches which deteriorate because the roof is old, and we lose a lot of such churches every year. But the government does not have enough resources to restore them. And then here the question is, can volunteers help once those monuments are included in the register? but there is no money to perform cultural and historic expertise or an expert appraisal, engage expert organizations to do this, to make a conservation project. There might be no money for that. So this regulation that I'm talking about governs certain aspects of such situations, and I will explain what can be done under this new regulation and what needs to be done if this regulation uh, does not meet the requirements of the cultural heritage preservation. So this regulation defines of the order of activities of volunteers with respect to preservation of national cultural heritage sites. The second item of this regulation says that participation of volunteers in restoration is performed according to the order defined by the law on volunteering. So you see that there is a link and reference to this charity and volunteer law that we just discussed. So volunteers may be engaged in preservation of cultural heritage sites performed by legal entities or individual entrepreneurs holding a license to perform such activity of preservation of cultural heritage sites. They also need to have permits to perform such activities issued by the appropriate regulator. So what do I understand by this? If we want to perform certain actions with respect to a cultural heritage site included in the register, or no volunteer organization that holds no license will not be able to perform any actions. Even if we do something like this, we do it together with some legal entity holding a license and a permit to perform activities on this cultural heritage monument. And also, we act on the basis of Law 73. So this law sets forth that only part of the activities may be given to an entity that performs actions aimed at preservation of the cultural site, and only part of those activities can be given to volunteers. So volunteers cannot just come and start doing something on this cultural heritage site. The law does not allow this. So all project-related activity, all research activity, term of preservation, term of restoration, restoration decisions should all take place according to law number 73. So we should remember this. Dmitry, we have a few questions to you exactly about this. Let me jump in a little bit and ask those questions. So please advise a question about volunteers who worked at Termsov Fest. What type of activities volunteers can perform without a license? This is exactly what I was going to speak about. So this new regulation defines a list of activities aimed at preservation of cultural heritage sites that could be performed by volunteers. This list is very short, and I will just read it to you. It won't take so much time. It's not much that volunteers can do. So item A, repair activities aimed at maintaining operability of a cultural heritage site without changing its features. is improvement of the territory around the cultural heritage site. So basically, this is a very small list of activities entrusted in volunteers. So, well, certainly a lot can be included in those three items. For example, repair activities aimed at operability maintenance of the cultural heritage site. Those repair work can include a lot of things. But let me reiterate again, uh, in any case, anything done by volunteers should be uh, in line with the regulation. So there shouldn't be any pure initiative of volunteers. Dmitry, thank you. We also have a question. If I'm just a very active person, who should I refer to start repair or restoration of cultural monuments? Who should I go to? Well, this is great that you're so proactive and you're probably very spirited about preserving cultural heritage sites. Yes, there is a certain sequence of steps that you should make to become a qualified volunteer in this area. And I can explain, well, Heritage Volunteer School held for the third year in a row. It's a project implemented as part of the national project called Culture, Creative People Project. So in these days, in 20 regions of Russia, the regional schools of heritage volunteer schools are held. So this is a project that should help such proactive people like you to find to friends, found people who think alike, to find object of application of your creative efforts, and to avoid mistakes. So the school offers various levels of education and training. Well, number one level is the basic level of education of 10 hours, and then the deeper level. So the basic level explains the regulatory environment around the restoration of cultural heritage sites. Also, master classes are offered on stonework, metalwork, and woodwork. So experts explain what type of errors should be avoided by volunteers as they interact with cultural heritage sites. So it's not only about law, it's more about tools that you can use as you do woodwork or metal work, what type of actions you can perform with respect to certain materials, how materials behave, what are their properties. So all this is explained at master classes by experts. And also there is a deeper level, a more profound level, 25 hours. It is dedicated for organizers of volunteer movements, leaders of volunteer movements. And so those volunteer leaders are immersed into explanation of legal aspects about registration of volunteer entities and groups. They also are given classes in psychology. They work in small groups, how to engage, how to motivate volunteers. So all of this is also taught to that more extensive level of training. And also there are workshops at the cultural heritage sites. So you'll be able to come to a specific site to get to know people who restore, who officially restore cultural sites. Well, I should tell you that oftentimes those people who restore cultural sites, professionals, they sometimes do not know how to interact with volunteers, and they have a lot to learn too. So be prepared for that as well. So if you first come to some regional school of volunteers called Heritage, first learn about this activity, and then you'll be able to find a volunteer entity uh, of your preference. There are a lot of opportunities, and I can make a short presentation of them. What are the major volunteer movements? For example, Общее дело operates in the central constituency of the Russian Federation. This entity takes care of wooden sites. Vereniца Foundation that takes care of wooden monuments and even stone monuments. Наследие project. And these are the projects carried out under the auspices of the Organization for Preservation of Cultural and Historical Sites. Krahino Foundation project, Tom Sawyer Fest that we discussed, of course, which already has a lot of regional affiliates. So all these activities, all these important groups and communities are looking at different types of heritage, different types of cultural heritage sites, churches, temples, and there is a group that takes care of military monuments, which is also a very important task nowadays. So I'm sure that you will have no difficulty finding a good group to apply your efforts after you have a training. I'm sure your efforts will be rewarded. This is very rewarding activity and very noble activity when you see that as a result of something you do, something has been preserved and cultural heritage is maintained, is not destroyed, and have not disappeared from the earth, and that future generation will be able to see and enjoy them. This is a very wonderful feeling. So I encourage you to take part in those initiatives, and the knowledge of the law will certainly be very helpful along the way. More questions? Yes, one more. The question is how to organize a school of volunteers наследие in our region. What are the tools to do this? So our attendees are wondering how to do this, where to file an application, what type of resources might be needed to host the volunteer school наследие in their region. Well, the Ministry of Culture, I'm sure, will continue with this project next year, and the number of regions will grow, the coverage will grow. So how to become a region that would host the volunteer school наследие. So now we have selected the regions, and of course those regions had already had some activities. Maybe they had Tom Sawyer Fest activities, or maybe they had city preserving volunteers, because it is hard to organize the school of volunteers from scratch. Sometimes educational institutions, colleges, or universities may have active groups of volunteers who already started performing volunteer activity. Well, first of all, you need to have some activity at the local level, at the regional level. I'm sure that in your region, there should be a regional authority for cultural and historic heritage site protection. So please get in contact with the regional affiliate and express your interest in hosting the volunteer school наследие. And so please approach the regulator in your region. And the federal organization basically relies on its regional affiliates. And this is the authority you should apply to if you want to host this volunteer school in the future. And also, if you have certain initiatives in your school, in your college or university, this will be helpful as well. Dmitry, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate your participation on our behalf, on behalf of the International Volunteer Camp. It is so nice when we see experts speaking in front of us and share their knowledge and skills. I'm sure we'll meet with you at the offline part of the International Volunteer Camp in Ufa in October. Hopefully, the pandemic will not stand in our way and we'll see you in person. Dmitry, thank you once again. And our attendees are also very appreciative of your talk. Thank you. I'm very happy to hear this. So we'll see you at the next section, at the next session of our International Volunteer Camp in about 10 minutes.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры – это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы – это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Друзья, мы продолжаем наш международный волонтерский лагерь.
Dear friends, we are carrying on with our international volunteer camp. And now we'll be talking about a very interesting subject, creative economy being means for governing community. And I want to introduce today's speakers. And I think I'll start with Alexander Maximov. Alexander is heading the library number 119 in the city of Moscow. And our speaker, who's joining us online, is Julia Karpunina, head of NGO Culture Volunteers from Novosibirsk region. And I think we'll start with you. We'll give you the floor, and please go ahead. Good morning, all the participants. And I'll become your expert in creative industry for today. So I think we should start with what creative industry is and what do we do with this, because it's not very well known for everyone. So this is the whole range of products and services that are being delivered by the culture. For instance, in Russia, it's officially 14 areas like design, game development, and we need to understand that this is different from IT systems, but game development is game development. Music, sound design, TV, fashion, editorial activity, computer graphics, and so on. And there are 14 of them, and they cover all kinds of spheres where creating something new is important, creating some product that can be created only by human mind. And in the 21st century, it's just starting because the technologies are moving ahead, and Person Studio, Hollywood, Soyuz Multfilm, all these companies, they are creating a product that they sell. So what's the place for volunteers there? Everyone's used to the fact that a volunteer is well away from the finance. And here we have volunteering in the sphere of culture. Volunteer becomes a very important figure, not just a person who does kindness, but in creative economy, in creative industry, volunteer helps a whole company to develop, because it's conscientious volunteer. It's about volunteering designer, volunteer artist, and he or she can come to a company offering his or her services for free, and in return can receive new connections and other benefits. So let's start with some simple cases. I'll tell you about my city, Novosibirsk, how they started how we started developing cultural sphere with volunteers. The first was branding soccer. And we thought that it would be nice to create some nice merch for the soccer event, and we got all the designers together, and they suggested a great thing. So let's not create something super new. Let's just use the brand Ya is Sibiri, or I am from Siberia, who are doing that. And so let's collaborate. Let's take their logo, let's take their clothes and give our customer their logo, and we'll collaborate. This way we can promote our local brand, and we'll create nice clothes. So we collaborated with our designers, and this collab was fabulous. And participants of the project who were in the sweet shops, they were really happy. And they were saying that we are taking with us the part of Siberia. And everyone kept asking, how do we buy these clothes? So volunteer is not connected with finance or with money, but we are becoming mediators of the land. It was tricky. And for the first years, we've been trying to gather together a big team. We're talking with authorities, asking them to allow us to, refurbish. But, it worked when we got together with local art communities. We visited local stores and companies who are located close to this park. And we're saying that we really want to do something about it, but we don't have anything except for our workforce. Maybe, how about we get together? Well, you're located next to the park. Maybe you get interested. And the project got running and it became really cool. Some people gave us the tools. Somewhere they gave us the electricity, and we were collaborating with sportsmen and skaters, and we have refurbished. And when local authorities saw that, well, I think that they believed in our idea, and they gave us some budgets for further refurbishment of the park, like sewage, like even in the ground and so on. So something that we couldn't do without funding. And now you can see the park behind the opera theater, which is a very nice spot in the very heart of Novosibirsk. So culture volunteers, arts people, and other businesses and authorities were collaborating. And I would like to hear your questions. And depending on them, I'll be carrying on. Thank you very much. It's a really nice experience. And yeah, culture volunteers being the engine of creative economy. But tell us, so volunteers are about something immaterial, but here we are talking about economy. So there is this question. A creative product should give you some revenue. And if the author of this product are volunteers and they are doing this for free, where do the revenues go? For instance, you were talking about merch. So where did the revenue go, for instance? The revenue should go to the company which is part of the economy. You shouldn't mix the volunteers who have knowledge and skills, and company employee. So the objective of a volunteer to help company develop, but not joining the revenue, because volunteer, well, our community is based on 3 values: love to art, love to the region, and friendliness. That's why when we can see that we can help some company, we help it for free and we discuss it beforehand. Like when we are talking about t-shirts and collaboration, we had collaboration of 2 designers, and our designer was a student, and she was helping them for free, and it was discussed in the beginning. And I'm from Siberia brand welcomed us, but the revenue stays there because our objective is to develop the economy of the region, becoming an additional driver, additional energy that comes to the company and helps it for free, connecting business and community. I think that in future, maybe we'll see the change in this relationship, but currently the volunteers, the culture of volunteers is a mediator between the creative industries and the community. So we are boosting the companies, but we are not trying to become the part of it. It's very important. Thank you for the detailed answer. Yeah, there are a lot of nuances to it. But if you take a general look, yeah, here you can develop and you can create something forever. And I think that executive agencies should pay attention to such projects. Thank you very much. And now we'll be moving on to the next expert, but please stay connected to remain a part of the discussion. And we are moving on to Alexander. And
Ну, как в знаменитом меме, страшно, очень страшно. Со всех экранов как бы нам говорят о креативном мышлении, о креативной экономике. Но
we are talking about
много разного понимания, разных терминов.
We are talking about creative economy, what that is, and so on, whether creative economy and creative industry, whether it's the same.
Но креативная экономика, наверное, чуть более широкий спектр и говорит о креативности.
But we are talking about creativity in the industry, well, in all the industries, in culture industry, in trainer, whatever. And it's really important to understand. And I won't enumerate all the spheres, but I must say that generating the ideas today is the cornerstone today. And the local identity that was mentioned by our speaker is one of the foundations of a creative industry. And I've seen that in some regions, laws on creative industries were already passed, and this subject has been discussed at the highest level, and the Presidential Foundation of Cultural Initiatives has introduced this nomination, and clusters are being created and many things are done.
Let me speak about one small aspect today. I'm not an economist. I am a librarian, and libraries are an important institution that works in the informational environment. And for some reason, unknown reason, we are still existing, no matter what. Libraries still exist, maybe through creative thinking. Let's discuss the foundation of creative thinking. This is a story which is a basis for generation of creative ideas. People argue and ask a question: creative spirit, is this something you are born with, or is it possible to develop a creative approach? Well, we see creative ideas on a daily basis. We try to address different issues using creative thinking. That's why creative thinking and its development is critical. So we use this skill on a daily basis. But development of critical thinking is at the core of this effort. So if you disagree with the quality of life, with standards of living, if you see certain distortions and you have new ideals and dreams, this will be a basis for creative thinking. And the second story is like this. I'm sure the volunteers who are watching us, most of us, even myself, so we keep making things up, trying to change life for the better, and that means I generate a lot of new ideas. So, and this capability needs to be developed, this skill needs to be developed and maintained. And also another skill is to be able to move on and on, say no to the original idea and maybe come up with some new one. And also the specificity and originality of our thinking, of our mindset, can be learned only through one process. whether our idea is unique and original. In order to understand this, we need to perform research, and we take lessons learned from our personal experience as well. So if we maintain those four things and rely on them as we develop creative thinking, it will lead us to creative approach to life in general, and therefore will lead further to the creative economics or economy. And this is the scenario well known to many of us. Well, emotional changes, curiosity, and dedication. As any other invention that surrounds us was invented by someone, and usually it was in at some moment of emotional stress, maybe a deadline or some disagreement with something or some rebellion or inspiration. When we are alone listening to the music, or maybe sort things out before going to bed. So different people generate creative ideas in different settings, some under emotional stress, some at peace of mind. Curiosity is also very important for creative thinking, but stage 3 is dedication, which is absolutely mandatory, because you can come up with some interesting idea, but you need to implement it, and for that you need dedication and determination. Velcro, you remember? A Swiss hunter was irritated by the fact that his clothing was dirty with or grass and needles and things. So he created this sticky tape that helps you clean clothing. So he was irritated, he was distressed, he was frustrated, and he invented this new thing. But he was determined enough to implement his idea. So no matter where you work, in high technology or in volunteering, you need dedication. Also, what is the word project? We often pack our ideas into projects, and volunteers in culture and in other areas are not an exclusion. So a project has a definition, and a project should include a unique product or service. And let us understand what it is. As a researcher, it is important for me to understand or differentiate uniqueness and novelty. One may become the other, or may be presented as the other. So, uniqueness and novelty. Uniqueness versus novelty. What does all this include? Novelty implies a new application of an already available solution, a prototype or an analog. When we can say, oh, we haven't had this in our region, and then it becomes a novel project or a novel idea for our region. But this doesn't mean that this idea is unique. This idea was invented, created by someone, and you as an entrepreneurial volunteer decide to kind of steal it. Steal as an artist, we like this saying, and implement it in your region. So this is an example of social entrepreneurship, but uniqueness is a broader concept. Uniqueness is new format, new content, new venue, new time, and new target audience. So uniqueness is a very comprehensive concept. And things that you develop can be very different. This is a story about the world of small ideas when we change the already existing prototype by just a little, adding some new target audience, for example, in the already existing ideas or to the already existing ideas. And we create a a more justified version of a given prototype, or we can add more target audience, a new venue, change time. This would be an upgraded prototype or analog of your project or idea. And coming back to the previous slide, innovation is when you change all the 5 things: format, content, venue, time, and target audience. The most famous innovation of the 21st century is an iPhone, which offered us new scenarios across all these aspects. So creative thinking is at the core of creative economy, generation of idea, production of ideas, not a standard foundation based on material assets, labor, capital, and resources, natural resources. This is another foundation, the foundation of your ideas. So if we develop our own creative thinking, so sooner or later, we will certainly move towards the creative economy. And young age is exactly the time to do this. Also, being creative means also being entrepreneurial. Economy requires this. Economy is very demanding. It wants to have more entrepreneurs, new businesses, and new initiatives. One more thing to share. A creative entrepreneur operating in a creative economy, or a creative volunteer who wants to develop his or her initiative or a project, is someone who should have quite a few skills. So you should develop your leadership skills, knowledge in sociology, ability to edit texts. You should develop managerial skills. And apart from the competences, we should remember ethics and standards of conduct, because creative people are those who offer something new to the society, something that will change our life for the better. And I often end my short speeches by wishing everyone creative determination and even stubbornness, creative stubbornness. But please do not over-create, because there should be a balance between determination and being stubborn. Alexander, thank you. How does creative economy affect volunteers and volunteering movement? Economy and volunteers used to be very much apart. So we would like to understand this relation between economy and volunteers, and why would volunteers need creative economy? Well, one bright example was already given today, not even once, throughout those days of International Volunteer Camp event. Well, Tom Sawyer's Fest. How was it invented? Well, this is all about creative economy. So the story began as an attempt to maintain the cultural image of Samara, the historical image of Samara. And these ideas began to engage volunteers, and then people started to implement. It was done in spite of everything, with the help of critical thinking. Andrei, when he created his story, Andrei and his team took an attempt to preserve something in the city of Samara. It was a small step at the beginning. So this is how ideas work. I think we should start from ourselves. So creative thinking is a story which can be very easily understood by volunteers, volunteers are people who disagree with the quality of life across all spheres of life, including culture. So if volunteers want to do things, they are entrepreneurial, they are proactive, and this prompts them to come up with new ideas. But of course, volunteers may have different background and experience, but sooner or later you will start coming up with your ideas and implement them. And that's where creative economy should embrace you. Yes, Tom Sawyer's Fest is a great example, and we mentioned it many times throughout our international volunteer camp. Well, I lived in Kaluga at some point, and we restored architect Yakovlev's house. Unfortunately, this house was later demolished, but that was part, the restoration was part of the Tom Sawyer's Fest. And imagine, you were a volunteer, now you're a moderator at the International Volunteer Camp. But what I'm happy about is that in Kaluga, Tom Sawyer's Fest is still in place. Even the demolition of that house that had been restored did not stop people from going ahead with their idea, because people wanted to make their city better, more beautiful. That was and is a really cool project. Or community of the volunteers in culture. This is also an idea that was immediately heard by various communities and institutions and became a consolidating idea that helped consolidate different groups. And it is fully aligned with creative industries and creative economy. Yes, you also mentioned that libraries still exist, which is unique, and libraries exist only thanks to creative experience. So, with example of your own library, how do you interact with volunteers? What creative ideas do you apply? So please tell us more what you do, because we do have libraries, we do visit them. Yes, it's not easy to visit libraries. Well, our library is under reconstruction, and we look forward to the end of this reconstruction. But when pandemic broke out, it was quite a change, and we offered people who couldn't leave their homes, retirees, for example, to bring books to their homes. That was a lot of work and a lot of responsibility, and volunteers helped us do this. So we received calls. Yeah, people had nothing to read and they needed books during the lockdown. And volunteers helped us a lot. They also help us organize events. They help us with tours in Lefortovo, etc. And most importantly, what they do is they bring their own ideas. They share our values and they are not indifferent. And they also organize their own events. And this is what I like most about volunteers. They're so full of initiatives. And we as a library always support them. Alexander, thank you. Well, institution of culture representatives from those institutions are listening to us now, and also librarians. Could you share your experience? What can you offer volunteers? So if a volunteer comes to you and says, I want to help you, what will you respond? What type of experience can regional libraries adopt? Well, I must be honest with you. In Russia, there are a lot of great libraries who work with volunteers as well. In our specific library, we have a chance to implement projects that are related to local stories, local history, and with books and literature in general. Well, hopefully, we will shortly present our new season and explain our new initiatives. Well, I can also share that volunteers, well, maybe I'm making forward-looking statements, but we will start recording podcasts. We opened up an audio studio and a recording studio. So with young guys, well, we will record podcasts and we will announce this story very soon. That's great. So does it mean that volunteers in the library will come up with some ideas about the topics of podcasts? We have Yulia Karpulina. Are you with us? Yes, I'm with you. I wanted to ask you, in Novosibirsk region, do you have experience of working with libraries, museums, and theaters? Can you share your creative ideas?
Maybe you can share what kind of ideas volunteers come with to the cultural institutions, what kind of ideas cultural institutions have. That's a great question on which we base our technology, and I'll carry on talking about the communities. When we were just starting to develop, we thought that we need to choose some, vector or direction. Maybe we should roll out some projects, or maybe we should just brainstorm and so on. But when we got deep into creativity and trends, we realized that it's important not just to follow the modern times, but we need to go step by step together with the people who you work with. That's why in our centers of kindness, we are creating the following projects. For instance, we come to Philharmonic, and they have some project, and we try to help them develop, and some social networks being created, and we suggest, and we ask them, what would you like volunteers to do? What kind of help you need? For instance, we're working with the House of Culture. They were making their plays and so on. The more often you ask those questions, the more often you get surprising answers. Every situation is unique, and despite the fact, Philharmonic, they work with music, and the Cultural House, they work with music, and Philharmonic said that we want to have residential volunteers, so the cultural volunteers who like music, and we want them to not just become part of our team. They want them to carry on with our volunteering activities outside the wall of Philharmonic, telling about Philharmonic in their universities, in their schools, and so on. And guys stop being just volunteers; they become ambassadors. And I think it's All Russian Tavrida Forum has a very good potential. They launched residence program when they moved to a different location. This is a representative for volunteers. I'm sure that you have dancers, artists, and let's create performances let's start developing our museum in a very different way. And we don't have people for that. Can you help us? And said, yeah, we can help you. And we work with them on a project basis. And we are planning a big project that encompasses both arts and music. So overall, it's about creating community. And in each institution, we are trying to create small, local, but very motivated community. And I feel that this is a very convenient technology. And by the way, we are happy to share this with other regions. Thank you. Thank you for interesting cases. I really like the idea of ambassadors, and maybe Alexander can find himself ambassadors in every university culture. For instance, somebody would be saying that I'm ambassador of this library, and you'll be giving them books. And I think that every cultural institution should consider this idea of ambassadors, and ambassadors can promote those institutions in social media and so on. Yeah, we have such ambassadors, so they are our readers. But yes, thank you for the idea. And while I was listening to Julia about interesting cases about volunteers in creative economy, I remembered about a project that happened this year, Samolov camp in Pskov region, and I want to share this experience. In Samalva village in Pskov region, where there was the ice battle in 1242, headed by Alexander Nevsky. So in that village, Alexander Nevsky, together with his army, was building a facility, and the population in the village is around 300 people. Well, when in summer more people come, yes, but and in this village, they have a library, culture house, museum dedicated to the Cyrus battle, and historical museum. And we have created a youth camp in this village, and throughout the whole summer, cultural volunteers were spending 10 weeks trying to figure out how to make Samalva village a tourist attraction, being appealing not only for the tourists but for the locals too, and it would be connected with the maintaining of the monument. And those people those volunteers came to and got the ideas, and the local cultural institutions use those ideas. For instance, Cultural Quest project. So volunteers brought together all the people in this quest, and any person who wants to take part can take part in it. And a historical museum ice battle. The guys created the tabletop game dedicated to Alexander Nevsky, and they gave it to a museum, and any person can study this bit of history with the help of the game. And I was heading one of the shifts, and one of the volunteers was Maria Rimina, and she's 64, and she's honored cultural work of the Russian Federation. So she came to the museum of the fishing area, and she came to the room of a hardware man. Well, it's basically it's a smith, but it's called hardware man. And there were over 80 cast object, and she created a description for each of the tools, or each of the forged tools. So she created a guide for the museum, and this is a unique experience. And here we take part in the development of a whole touristic cluster. I think you should say it straightforward. What you did, it wasn't just a camp. Basically, it's art residence, and this is one of the key types of facilities in creative industries. So I think that this story that helps territories developed with the help of culture and arts, and the ideas that you've created, the products that you've created in the course of the camp, they will be developing the territory. That's how creative industries work. Yeah, and by the way, on the 11th of September, Alexander Nevsky's memorial was opening, and the president of the Russian Federation came, and we've been telling him what kind of job we did. And for us, it was an opportunity to talk to the first person in the state. And it was also a bit of a reward because volunteer works are free, and how can you motivate them? Well, express gratitude, and the fact that President liked our work, and this camp became an annual camp, and hopefully other regions and countries will take this experience and use volunteers for promoting the area. If you have a minute, I want to share one case. It's a very brief case, my favorite one. The Loch village in Saratov region. I want to say hello to them. And this was the project of preserving the water mill. It was totally volunteering work, and people were spending their own money, and they are carrying on. And now they started working with grants and work with local identity of the village, with the village history. And this year, finally, they opened the arts residence. That's something that you're talking about through local initiatives, through people wanting to change life of the village to the for the better, and through attracting volunteers, it can work. Whatever money you find and pay, it won't work unless people want to do something, and it can happen.
Да, пожалуйста, Юля.
Yeah, Julia. I'm listening to you, and this cultural quest project, like my ideas were shaped having quests in the city. We have this quest, but it turned into something very unusual. We are preparing the cultural quests in the theaters in local format. When people come to the theaters and discover the theater and the opera theater, the biggest one in Siberia, were the ones, and they couldn't do it during daytime, but they used the night of museums, and they have created a quest for theater, and it really attracted the audience, and it was really interesting when you come as a spectator, but when they are behind the curtain, when you're looking for something, when you have deadlines and you have a big team and you're running inside there as part of the quest, it creates great emotions, great impressions. And people really like this experience. And actually, when we met Sergey, the head of Cultural Quest in Vladimir, we asked, is it possible to do it for a single facility? Yeah, and we did it, and we are working on the project for 8 theaters in the city. That's how creativity can improve life, even locally. Thank you, Julia. We've mentioned Cultural Quest. It's one of the most scalable projects. And if you don't know this, we have the flagship projects. There are 10 of them. You can see them in the website voluntarykultury.rf, and it's a franchise. And any region, any cultural institution can pick a project, contact the head of it, receive the mechanic of how to implement it or the technique, and just run it. And I think it's a great experience in creative economy when you figure it out how you roll it out. And in regions, it takes the new forms, they become unique, they become even bigger. That's great. And I think, just sorry, I check whether we have questions from our viewers. There are questions about rewarding, non-material rewarding. Julia, what kind of interesting methods you have in your region of rewarding the volunteers? What do they get except for like the opportunities to communicate and so on? Well, unusual formats of recognition at a big level, at a local level, because everyone knows about the typical rewarding, like giving the certificates, giving free tickets, and it's great when you can meet a representative of some industry or with an actor, for instance, but they are classic and everyone's used to it. And in our region, we came up of a new format of recognition of a person. For instance, when we were running the project Drawing for Health, when we were painting the walls of the children's hospitals, the biggest reward for taking part in this project for the guys was the opportunity to becoming an author of a big painting on a wall that'll stay there for a very long time. Yulia? Oh, okay, you are back. Yeah, carry on. Just turn the mic on. Turn the mic on. What about now? Yeah, it's good now. But while Julie is working on her mic, let us ask the same question to Alexander. Maybe you can share the methods of non-material rewarding of volunteers. You know, I think that except for recognition, it's very important to give them the initiative, communicating in a straight way that the best volunteers will be supported and will be integrated into the institutions, and they'll be receiving more and more responsibility, and they'll be receiving new knowledge, new skills. They'll be supported, their initiatives will be supported. And I think that initiative competition amongst the volunteers can also be a form of recognition. If in the first case they become ambassadors, but here they become the leaders and future leaders of those volunteering teams. And next bit of motivation, maybe internship in the company and then eventually working in the company. And this is also non-material motivation. It's career and responsibility. And opening the doors for volunteers, giving them the chance of being the full-scale residents of the cultural institutions, that's something that helps them feel at home, not being there just to do something.
Is to see something that is not available, an award of the year. Maybe in the region you have something similar. Yeah, we do have something similar in our region. We don't hear Yulia. We do not hear Yulia, but she will try again to work with her settings to improve the sound.
Русский язык в настройках.
Хорошо, пока продолжим. Нет, не слышно, Юль, тебя, к сожалению.
Well, unfortunately, we do not hear Yulia. Can you hear me now? Now, yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. Wonderful. I understood at which point the sound came back to us. I called you Natalia in the first part of my presentation, and as soon as I realized this, the sound, so we started hearing you back again. Yes, continue about acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, what does it mean? Is an award. So last year, indeed, we had an attempt to introduce an award. We collaborated with the Ministry of Culture, and we created letters of appreciation from the Ministry of Culture. But this is a classical way of appreciation and acknowledgement. On our behalf, we created a rating. So we selected the top 10 volunteers of the year. We did not dare calling it an award because an award would probably require a lengthy preparation and ceremony. So we decided to make a pilot rating and pilot attempt. So we introduced a rating for volunteers, and it was very well received. So people, the volunteers who became the top 10, they actually became the leaders because they were indeed the leaders of certain projects. So once they were acknowledged by the society, people started looking at them. They started talking to those leaders, asking what needs to be done to become the top 10. I also would like to be awarded. So what happened is that those top 10 started getting followers, and those top 10 became mentors for the other volunteers. So next time we would like to create not just letters of appreciation, but glass statuettes as a token appreciation. But acknowledgement is not always like that. Acknowledgement is about emphasizing the authorship of given projects. For example, when a facade of an outpatient clinic is painted, of course, there is always an artist, a specific artist with a name who did it. And during the tour, the city tour, we mention a group of people or a specific artist who did this painting and what was his motivation. So a volunteer in culture is somebody who wants to express himself or herself. Of course, there are areas where volunteers work behind the scenes, and those activities are not seen by regular citizens of the city. And we try to make it known. we try to acknowledge this and launch information in the social networks, because it's important that people, that citizens of the city know their heroes. And the heroes want to be acknowledged, want to be known and recognized. So recognition, acknowledgement is important. Recognition of achievements. And I think for the two volunteers out of this group, that project, painting of facades, helped them to get a job, a real job thereafter. Yulia, thank you. This shows once again then volunteers. Yeah, we need to learn how to say thank you to volunteers. So a volunteer is not working for money. He wants to demonstrate his skills and competences. He wants to feel needed, to be needed, and to receive recognition and acknowledgement of his or her efforts. I think we will wrap up now. I think we've had a very interesting dialogue. Thank you, our distinguished experts. Thank you for your time, for your knowledge and practices. I hope that our visitors, our attendees have learned a lot of new things, and they will propagate those practices in their respective regions. The next practical session will start in 5 to 7 minutes. We will talk about a personal brand as networking of environment created by society.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры – это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы – это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать,
значит, волонтеры.
Почти в каждом городе есть старинные здания, которые определяют его лицо. Делают город отличающимся, необычным. Во многих таких зданиях сегодня располагаются музеи. Сюда приходят туристы, здесь происходят культурные мероприятия. Но многие объекты культурного наследия нуждаются в реставрации, ремонте, поддержке. Хотели бы что-то сделать для этих зданий, помочь в их восстановлении? Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Программа поддерживает добровольческое движение, помогает беречь культурное наследие и исторический облик наших городов. Став участником, вы научитесь новому, поставите перед собой интересные, необычные цели, сможете реализовать собственные идеи и проекты, собрать свою команду для того, чтобы реальными делами помогать сохранению истории и развитию культуры.
Я думаю, что волонтерское движение – это вообще очень важный факт нашей жизни, вот современной. Волонтеры очень нужны, и мы все очень нуждаемся в них.
Принять участие в программе «Волонтеры культуры» может каждый. Помогайте сохранять свои города и их культурное наследие. Возраст не важен. Получить нужное умение и внести свой вклад могут все. Участвуйте в программе «Волонтеры культуры».
Я уже записался. Увидимся.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новое знание и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Почти в каждом городе есть старинные здания, которые определяют его лицо. Делают город отличающимся, необычным. Во многих таких зданиях сегодня располагаются музеи. Сюда приходят туристы, здесь происходят культурные мероприятия. Но многие объекты культурного наследия нуждаются в реставрации, ремонте, поддержке. Хотели бы что-то сделать для этих зданий, помочь в их восстановлении? Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Программа поддерживает добровольческое движение, помогает беречь культурное наследие и исторический облик наших городов. Став участником, вы научитесь новому, поставите перед собой интересные, необычные цели, сможете реализовать собственные идеи и проекты, собрать свою команду для того, чтобы реальными делами помогать сохранению истории и развитию культуры.
Я думаю, что волонтерское движение – это вообще очень важный факт нашей жизни, вот современной. Волонтеры очень нужны, и мы все очень нуждаемся в них.
Принять участие в программе «Волонтеры культуры» может каждый. Помогайте сохранять свои города и их культурное наследие. Возраст не важен. Получить нужное умение и внести свой вклад могут все. Участвуйте в программе «Волонтеры культуры».
Я уже записался. Увидимся.
Good morning. We continue our day. This is the third session of today. International Volunteer Camp is an event that assembles both Russian and foreign attendees, and we deliver interesting information to everyone. Everything is recorded, all records will be maintained, and everyone who is interested will be able to watch it again. So we have three sections of our camp. Number one is heritage, and we speak about cultural heritage, legal aspects associated with it, how to preserve legal heritage. The second block is managerial skills, development of creative industries, interaction of volunteers and institutions of culture, development of managers of culture and volunteer movement. And number three is the most interesting part, development of individual competences. Let me introduce our next speaker, who will speak about trends, which are important for everyone, and without it, our community will not be able to develop. This is the main tool of promotion and development globally. Let me introduce Ekaterina Ramanova, copywriter, literary editor, author of online training course on writing of text. She will speak about her personal brand, how to write text in the right way, how to promote yourself, how to promote your product. I'm sure we'll learn a lot of new things. So please write your comments and questions to Ekaterina. Dear friends, I hope you can hear me.
Great. I'm very happy to be here today, and I want you to meet myself even better, for you to be easier to perceive information from me. Yes, I'm copywriter, I'm an editor, and I've been training people for many years. These are the young people. The youngest student of mine is 13 years, and he was studying under mom's control. The oldest student is a retired person who decided to get to retrain. So because we have special situation in the country, to be able to earn as much as he wants for as long as he wants. I teach men and women. I teach those who think it's easy, those who think it's very difficult, and they succeed. And I help writing books, and we have published 6 books during last year together with big bloggers and entrepreneurs, those people who are in love with their profession. And I also boast I'm considered to be one of the best cooperators. I became number 2 in the Russian competition. So we'll be talking today about social media. Now I'll be focusing on Instagram because this is my spot, and I have most of experience there. And this is a priority for me, not for this reason only because I've been there long and so on, because there are some objective reasons behind it. How you go there and how you get there, how you receive profit there. And we'll be talking about personal brand. What is it? And how you create it for yourself. Why person needs social media. I'll be talking about, and I'm talking about this because I want to motivate you. I can describe nicely how you create social brand, but I can explain that this is not something fast. You just post something, and today and tomorrow you have a personal brand. No, it's not that easy. But those processes are natural, and we can just need to adjust what we have in our head to social media, but you'll be resisting. If I do it like that. For instance, you're part of some non-commercial organization or in a commercial organization, you work somewhere, and probably your company has social media, maybe it's being maintained by you or by a designated person, and some event happens, or product is being sold, or they launch some non-commercial product, or you need to talk about some idea and share the information with a lot of people. So let's take the example that your company or your organization is organizing an event and you need as many people to come there as possible. And it's logical to post in Instagram or in other social media using this company's account. Normally, you've got more people subscribed there compared to us. Well, it depends. It depends on how social media are maintained. Unfortunately, many organizations are not doing well with social media, and for them, it's some kind of formality. We're just maintaining them, we're just announcing some news, and we are writing in a very formal language there. On average, it feels that, yeah, we'll post on our social media. Why should you post the same information in a personal account? It won't give me anything. It doesn't make sense. But actually, it makes sense and makes a lot of sense. In actuality, it doesn't matter how many subscribers you have. It can be 100, it can be 500, but mostly these are the people you're friends with, the involved people. And if company tries and invests into social media, then it'll be okay. But when it's just formality, when we see this official language you just don't want to read, when the content is boring, well, we may be subscribed to the account of this organization, but you skip this information. And the audience stops interacting with the content on the page. In personal accounts, normally, this is not the story, because people know you, and we follow people we are subscribed to, because they're our friends. And we had a proof of that for the shop with luggage. Instead of spending money on the bloggers, because it's not working, we offered people who come to the shop to buy their luggage. We offered them either discount or a present for them to mention us in social media. But people were getting surprised. Well, these are just my friends. I have 50 subscribers. But the salesperson said, doesn't matter. It's really important that you chose us and you choosing, and if you mention us, it would be good. And from every person like that, we were getting to 3 to 5 new customers. And those were fantastic results, although we've been investing very moderately, and people were very happy. And if somebody who we know recommends something, invites somewhere, offers something, probably it's not just advertising. Although bloggers recommend some good things quite often, but we feel that this is something commercial. For them, advertising is their job, it's commerce, and we don't perceive it well normally. But when a recommendation comes from the person we know, we perceive it differently. You post not just to make people do something, for them to come somewhere. You don't care whether these people come to the event. It's about creating awareness yourselves, and you are evaluated. They judge you based on your post. You may not want it, but it happens. friends, people who you haven't seen for a while, evaluate you. And somebody checks, well, how is my friend from school doing? Oh, I haven't seen this person for a while. And you can say the same thing about me. Oh, I was receiving C's and B's only, and people wonder how I'm doing. And give your comment if you saw some love story that people meet in Instagram and so on. And recently, I was writing this story for a very famous blogger, and her story was just like that. She met her husband in ВКонтакте, and she didn't think that it was serious, but he was insisting. They started texting each other. It's not only about marketing and sales. It's about your personal story. And of course, your colleagues evaluate you and judge you based on what you post, and employers. And very often they say, well, we've checked your social web page, you don't have to send us your CV. So the question comes, does it make sense to maintain all the social media? Because we have YouTube, there are classmates, there's ВКонтакте, TikTok, Instagram, some small social media. So do we have to be present everywhere? We don't have time. Of course, the standard opinion for the marketing people is, yeah, you have to be present in all the spots. But as you understand, that standard opinion and my opinion differ quite well. You need to be present in only those media that you can maintain well. If it's only one, then yeah, it's only one. If it's Instagram, then it's Instagram. If it's ВКонтакте, then be it. If it's TikTok, then okay. If you are ready to maintain TikTok, then yeah, let it be TikTok. Yeah, it's a great network. I really like its algorithm, but still I choose Instagram, although I'm present in several places. I'm in Instagram and I'm in TikTok. Why? I choose Instagram because there are several types of content interacting this: photos, videos, short and long videos, online and recorded. The ones that can be saved, the ones that can disappear, they are different, and it motivates people perceive information differently. And naturally, long texts. And I think that interaction Instagram is something that's most similar to interacting in real life. There are different formats, different forms of materials, and there are different types of texts and videos too. So we give different forms of information, unlike TikTok. That's the main difference. If I'm running an account in Instagram, I'll be posting different things there. Something useful, something informative, and so on. We'll discuss different types of formats. And in TikTok, it's always the main thing to entertain. And if there is a training content, probably you won't be able to achieve the whole range, like educational content and entertaining content. So that's the situation with TikTok. You don't have a lot of interaction with subscribers for now. TikTok and Instagram, they are competing against each other. They haven't merged yet, so we'll be following them. So text is something separate. I can't say that this is the most important type of content. I think that everything is important, and every subscriber should be allowed to perceive the information in the most comfortable way. It can be just video, it can be just audio, it can be text. And I think Instagram is the most reading spot now, most reading social media. That's why I like. So there is this indignation appearing now. Wow, no one's reading text. It's not modern. Everyone's watching videos now. Reels through and short TikToks like Reels. It's easy, you just have to make videos and that's it. But let's agree on the fact that let's not manipulate the notions. There are different types of perception. Some people like audio. Some want both audio and visual, and some want to read. I'm an old woman. I cannot track those pictures in. I'll be slowly moving along the content. I don't need flashing something in there. And in TikTok, in videos, you have to talk faster, like I'm doing now, or later, because otherwise the person will fall asleep. I will tell you the story now, and that's it. People skip you. So every person has their own way of pursuing the information. And for you to want to write the text, let's talk about true opportunities that we have. But before that, if you don't understand something from what I'm talking, maybe I'm not sufficient specific, or you miss something, please send your messages, and we'll be stopping from time to time, because people who have been there for a while and they get inspired, they are telling something and think that people understand, but in reality, wow, there are some people, oh, I didn't get it. So to avoid that, when you feel that you don't understand me completely, or when you get lost in what I'm talking about, please send your messages to the chat. We'll be making some stops and for explanations. So true opportunities of text in social media for companies, for organizations, and for you personally. Well, firstly, with the help of text, you can show how different you are from the rest. And we are competing for the audience. Non-commercial companies, many of them, they do same things. Even if you are in greenery and if you are in helping children, they are competing for the same audience. So you need to understand that you are competitors. Even if you don't sell anything, if you are creating content for your own self, you are competing for attention. For instance, you have an audience of your friends only, but you are competing with the rest of the friends who are also posting. You are competing for the time. Your friend can go and play something, some game, or read your text. And if your texts are cool, then this is the possibility of showing how different you are and showing that it's fun spending time on your content. If you promote yourself in social media, then probably your text becoming interesting will improve your situation, and you can promote yourself for free and not for free. Of course, there is targeted advertising and so on, but very often it doesn't speed things up now, and probably you don't need a lot of big audience. I've just got 29,000 subscribers. Do I need more? No. Everyone gets surprised, and I receive these offers. Let's increase the traffic. Well, I don't want more people to write me, because we don't have enough time with my students to read more, and I don't want to get more people to teach because I'll just explode. I won't have the time. Why would I need it? So to be commercially successful or non-commercially successful, it's not always that you need more and more people all the time. No, you need your targeted audience and the amount of audience that you can work with. And free promotion methods work quite well. Hashtags, geotags, tagging your friends and people you know, those who visited your event. So collaborations that you create for free. When you write people who do something similar, when you're creating something happening, then people just lose you.
Or either they stop interacting with the content. Effective texts save time. The same questions are asked. Salespeople are asked the same: how much, where to buy, what are the colors, will it be reliable, can this be operated in this fashion? The same questions are asked. And the same for the NGO. Most often the same questions are asked, the same objections against the target actions are raised. And even personal accounts, friends ask the same things. How are you doing? So imagine you haven't talked to a person for a long time and he asks you, how are you? And what can you answer? I'm okay. This sounds kind of sad. So to save your time, not to answer everyone, to save everyone's time and make their answers more interesting, more deep, more private. So how are you? I'm fine. But the question is, how did you like participation in that contest? How did you win? This is another question. I know what to speak about. What are the frames? What is the framework? So save your time, write good texts. So with the text, we increase the number of target actions and a number of sales, business-wise. But in case of NGOs, well, we're kind of not selling anything. But when I say sales, it doesn't mean sales for money necessarily. I mentioned already that we sometimes compete for one and the same resource, and we also compete for time. Time is a interesting currency. People pay us with currency, but this currency, we do not accumulate it. So basically, your post is read, then you add 5 minutes of your time, like in a movie. So it would be great if when people read your content, you would get more time of life. But this is not the case, unfortunately. But anyway, time is something we compete for because it is limited. It's a limited resource. And this is my principal position. When people write me comments, ask me questions, or send me reactions, I react to it as to something really important, and people are really surprised. Do you have nothing to do except for react to my reactions? Imagine 29,000 subscribers sending me reactions. But what I do is I open my account and write words of appreciation. But when I imagine a person on the other side of the planet sitting there, and instead of doing his own business, he is reading my post and sending me reactions, I think this is really great, and I want to respond to this person. So there is a more clear currency in social networks: subscribes, likes, savings. Basically, it's the same money. Like is 100 rubles, a comment is 500 rubles, storing information is 700, subscription is 1,000 rubles. So if we want our post to be commented as much as possible, to have activity, so we can write a text in such a way in order to generate this activity. Of course, increasing the value of your company, of your entity, is also possible through a text. This is a frequent story in commerce when people sell something beautiful only thanks to pictures. It may be fashion or jewelry, and then people are surprised. Why can't I sell at a higher price? I show my pictures. Well, this is how people say nail service or haircuts. And people are sometimes surprised, why can't they raise prices? Because the prices are the same across the industry. When a person looks at the picture, he just sees a picture. It's just a beautiful picture, photo, as beautiful as in any other account. So you have a charity event. Well, you're great. Your charity event is exactly the same as other 10 charitable events at a given moment of time. In Moscow, for example, when a lot of things take place at the same time, and people choose by geography sometimes. But if you know the value of something, then you choose with your heart. You vote with your heart. Well, I see that your product is beautiful. You know, when you come to a store and you see a description of a dress, polka dot dress. Well, I do see that it's a polka dot dress, but why would you write it? This is pretty straightforward. So, and the salespeople often say, so these are jeans, this is a polka dot dress. What is necessary? Well, what we do is explain exactly the value of a given product. So what should make a person come to an event? What exactly should make him buy a book or a text from me? Imagine how many people come to me and say, oh, a text, should I pay for a text? And I start telling them what can be achieved through a text. And then they say, oh, I'm interested, please send me your details. And texts in Instagram help you form attitude and control your audience and create what you want to create, meaning a community, a real community. So to make this happen, and you know, you may have a lot of subscribers, but those may be just numbers, people who do not know you, who are not aligned with your goals, though they just subscribed for some reason, but their area of interest is different from yours. So people now look more at the content and meaning. So to control your audience, not just to have 1 million of subscribers, and then you write a post and only 100 people respond and nobody does what I suggest. So there are 6 types of text content. Why 6? To interact with people. In order to interact with people, you need to provide different types of information. Well, there are informational texts in the first place where you don't need to reinvent the wheel and just you need to deliver information. So you just say that an event will take place at a given venue and at a given time. I just inform you about it. Or maybe I want to remind you about something. I just need to remind you about the upcoming event, so I don't really need to write a huge text. My text will be very brief. So I say 12 p.m. on March the 5th, a given event will take place dedicated to something. And everyone will come to that event if it is scheduled. So we do need informational texts. For example, guys, I'm going on vacation and I'll be back on a given day. Because, you know, there are some loyal subscribers, and when I don't write anything, they start saying to me, where are you? Well, I'm a copywriter, I'm a teacher, I'm not a blogger, I'm an editor, literary editor. So I'm not a blogger. So if I'm too busy with my work, I will not write anything on Instagram. Although there are certain Instagrams that make us write regularly, but there are also algorithms that make me live normally, breathe normally, and work normally. So therefore, I may warn my subscribers about my vacation that will be out of reach for 2 days or for 7 days. So this is just information, an informational message. There are use is a content that should also be present in your writing, roughly. So we're all friends. We all have friends and acquaintances, and we make friends with people for a reason. We learn from people, no matter what it is. It may be like between students, you are friends because some people are better students and you want to learn from them. Or maybe I have a friend who goes to all kinds of art galleries and he shares his knowledge and experience, and this is valuable for me, so that's why I'm friends with him or her. Or my girlfriend who became a mother before me, so she shares useful content with me. So I'm saying that Instagram is very much like live interaction. And this is exactly this. So after useful text, I think everyone has the same impression. Instagram delivers a lot of value on the one hand, but sometimes you're overwhelmed with this useful content. That's why I stopped posting useful texts, and I don't do that as frequently as before. That was great. I mean, those useful texts were good, but people get overwhelmed with this uselessness. And I don't know how other bloggers write those useful texts because people are overwhelmed. There is no feedback to that useful texts, to those useful texts. So you need to compensate, to offset those useful texts with entertaining texts. People need to be entertained, not just to provide some interactive things or games to them. Or you can simply speak about something simple with friends. Bloggers sometimes laugh when we discuss weather. Weather is an entertaining topic. You don't sell anything, you do not impose anything on anyone. I just give my audience a simple topic for discussion. When I speak about the value of the product created through a text, or I talk about how to use right language. So the beginners in copywriting may not be able to share anything. They sometimes say, thank you, it was useful. Well, actually, this is good enough because this feedback is also valuable. And I made my audience write to me, and it took me some time to teach my audience to do this. But at the same time, if beginners listen to me, they cannot really say anything, cannot really contribute anything. But when I speak about my hometown, the small hometown of Shuya, and my childhood in the village, so most people can share this with me, the same experience, people coming from small towns and villages. On the one hand, it has nothing to do with my goals and objectives. Those texts or those topics do not sell anything to anyone. But at the same time, there is so much aggressive value coming from different texts on the one hand, and people want to get some rest. People need a break. Give people a chance to become friends and be able to share. I'm sure you have a girlfriend with whom you can speak about nothing. There is no specific goal of a conversation and you don't even remember what you discussed. But it is very relaxing. And this is an underestimated type of content, entertaining content, relaxing content. So please remember this. After the entertaining texts, we may offer one more type of a text. Most of your competitors do not use this type of text, either because they do not understand how to use it, or they think it is too complex, although it is not. They are called user-oriented texts. So when audience provides you feedback and discusses different subjects with you, this is a good reason to create content based on those comments, on the basis of opinions expressed, on the basis of their recommendation, comments and reviews, screenshots, anything, whatever. When they tell stories, please mark them. Please, let me give you an example on how to do this. With my client, he teaches drawing sketches. She's a freelance, and also she motivates people to be freelancers. She's a freelance herself. This is logical. Well, so she promotes freelancing. She says she's a copywriter. So first we write a motivating post saying, stop sitting at the same place. You wanted to learn something. Let's get going. So people begin commenting it because it resonates with them. And people say, yes, I just took a course, but I just cannot start doing anything. And other people say, yes, I want to take a course, but I haven't decided yet. I haven't made up my mind yet. And another person says, I have taken a course already and I'm doing something already. Thank you for this motivation. Or we find a post which says, I'm so much motivated. I didn't even wait for anything. I didn't have a tablet when I started drawing. I started drawing on a smartphone. Imagine my phone is quite big, but that girl had just a small phone with a small screen, and she drew with her finger on her screen. I got to her account and I just couldn't understand how she did it, how she had done it, how she had been drawing with a finger on a small screen. That was incredible, but that was pure truth. So we got in contact with that girl. And what did we do about that post? We wrote a text about her path, about her journey, and he worked really great. Our audience realized that we spoke not only about ourselves, because bloggers look or maybe their images like self-complacent people. This is true to a certain extent, but when bloggers give subscribers a chance to speak up, which is great. This is great. The subscribers get really inspired. And when we posted a story of that young girl, there were so many comments and people were so inspired and motivated. And there were many more stories of that kind. Like there was one lady with 3 kids, another lady drawing with her parents. So what was great about it is that people felt important, they felt heard, and the right of choice was given to them. Sometimes we believe such things don't work, but they do a lot. Let me call you bloggers, even if you don't have many subscribers. You are opinion leaders for 100, 500 or 1,000 people. And you can make changes step by step, teaching people that they can express themselves, that they should express themselves. And this is really cool. By doing this, you can change the future of our country. Okay, and another type of text are selling texts, promotional texts. No matter what you sell or just promote some charitable ideas or an event, it may be an event not for money but for time. Promotional texts matter. For Rosatom, for example, we were saying NGO events, not-for-profit events. For example, a library organized a quest based on Harry Potter's book. So, and we had to speak about that upcoming event to make the audience come to that event. Even if it is for free, people had to wake up early, get prepared, come to the event. So, and we motivated people through promotional texts. And just for you to understand it fully, there is the 6th type of text. They're mixed texts. Sometimes informational texts are combined with promotional texts. Entertaining texts are combined with useful. user-related, also mixed with entertaining. So all these type of texts are needed so that you will never say to anyone that you have nothing to write about. So a question to you now. So a lot of people are listening to me now. So we now know 6 types of text. So imagine you have a group of 100 volunteers. So what do you need to do to make yourself visible? Well, to make yourself visible, you need to create a personal brand. What is a personal brand? It is some image that is created around you, that is remembered and reflected in a given community. Let me explain once again in simple terms. So an image is anything you are. Blonde hair, minimalistic a pendant, a lot of books, vintage and love for 19th century mansions, weird music that I listen to, fast talk, love to text.
All that is about me. You memorize it because I reflect that in my social media. I've created the feed that creates certain perception of me, not like a classic copywriter sitting in a cafe with a laptop. I am located in a different, a little bit strange place, but that's how I show myself the way I am. I'm telling a story of what's happening. I'm making everyone laugh because I can't sleep at night because some crazy idea came to me. I show how I work on the books. And you see all of that about me in the way you can perceive. I hope that it became clear what a personal brand is. And when people say personal brand, someone thinks of Buzova or Kirkorov, the Russian celebrities, and think that, well, personal brand is expensive, it's very labor intensive and so on. But let's spend a little bit of time to work with these objections, because otherwise you'll be listening to me nodding and that's it. And I want to ask you the question, dear friends, what do you think? Are you a personality? It's a tricky question. Of course, you are personalities by definition. The definition that we have in Russia. What kind of personalities you are? Great personalities. You do charitable work. You are volunteering. You have created something and you're developing or are planning to develop your own project. You wear something. You go somewhere. You are friends with someone. You speak this way. You behave that way. You are personalities. And congratulations, you've got a personal brand. And personal brand is not an expensive thing, and it's created with the help of social media, and social media is free. How good is that? Although you can pay for your promotion, but you can create your account for free. You can publish something for free. You can promote yourself for free in certain ways. You can text each other for free, attract audience for free. And if you swap time and effort for money, okay, but time and effort you'll have to invest, but that's the result. But you'll get the results. Do you know what a loyal community is? We were talking about true opportunities of the text. So loyal community. And if amongst you there are young people, like a 18 years of age or something, if there are young people around you, then I can guarantee that at one point of time you change, you start doing something else, not what you do now. Even if you went for your profession in the first grade, life is changing and things keep appearing that you cannot imagine now. Even adults successful in their professions and jobs. So where do they go, right? For instance, my customer we are writing a book with, she is being a top manager, and at a point of time, she just left and decided to become a coach. And people thought truly that she's gone mad. Who does this? Well, people do that. And when people do that, they don't have social media or brand with the community. And, you know, it's like a Snow White in a dangerous forest. You are afraid of every noise. You are not confident that you'll get the result. But when you have loyal community, it'll be people will follow you. Whatever you invent, the core people that you have will say you're crazy, but I'm with you. Where do we go? When you invest your time in a personal brand, it's not a cost, it's an investment. Even if you have a small community, like imagine 100 people in the same square. It's a lot. And if those people stand behind you, then you win in many situations. That's why let's create personal brand. How is it being created? First, you have to describe it. I told you that there are different criteria. The way I talk, the way I dress, the associations you get when you look at me. And you should write that down. Because when I ask people the way they position themselves, they start talking in very general terms, and you know, you cannot figure anything out. And before you write it down specifically, you cannot get the idea. And after you've described everything, the adjectives that can be associated with you and so on, you need to create a certain image. I'm strict. What people would associate with strictness, strict clothes, strict accessories, strict hairdo, strict places I go to. How should the space around me look? This is called packaging. And I don't want you to think that packaging is something bad. Packaging, packing paper, craft paper, packaging can be anything, whatever fits your objective. So what does personal brand include? Positioning, who you are. Are you a marketologist? Are you a copywriter just like me? Are you an interpreter, entrepreneur? You are a volunteer, you're a manager. Very often you visit account of a person and he's somebody. Who is it? And it's not a tattoo. And at any point of life, when you have a loyal community, and today you can be a head of a company, next year you can become a surfer. Your positioning can be different. You are developing throughout your life. You're getting new knowledge, new experience, and it's logical that you change as a person, but currently you are somebody. Who are you? Think about it, and it's easiest to write down where your name is. Instead of Jane Smith, you should write who you are. The next part of your personal brand is expertise. Every single one of us is an expert in something. If you are talking about your profession, then probably you're an expert in this profession. Maybe you're a volunteer, but you also like history and something else and something else. So you can have other areas of expertise. And the great thing about social media, then you can do whatever you want in it. Again, I'm saying very different things to marketing people who say that you have to write only something that you need for your work and so on. But you are a personality. You are more than just one of your objectives. You are more than a business that you do. You're always more than your volunteer's mission. Be brave. Show your expertise in different spheres. Well, I'm volunteer, but I'm mom to 2 kids. And also, I'm a professional event manager, and I'm very proud of it. And I'm also a professional host, and I also write books. Yeah, speaking of books, a great way. It's a great way to show your expertise. And unlike what we had 100 or 200 years ago, any person can write a book today. And if social media is like 5 minutes meeting when you meet the same people every day, book's a book. Because you have a text up to 200 symbols, then you have video up to 2 minutes. But a book is a long date that transforms into a relationship if the book is good. It affects people differently. And if you have an idea, if you have strength, and we won't be stronger, won't be younger than now, maybe it's the right time today. It shouldn't be a paper book, even though it's great to have a paper book, because it's like a sign of quality, and older people will be for a book. Electronic reading will not replace reading on paper, and there are studies on that. There are different people who prefer e-books, who prefer real books. So book will highlight your expertise much better than useful posts. Well, you need the posts in your accounts, but compared to a book, it's a different story. There was a great situation with my client. We are finishing with her writing her book, and every Saturday we post some useful information from that book, and we are warming the audience up. They get interested in the book, and we have resolved the issue with the content. And often, and most often, people like it. It's part of book promotion campaign, and people like it. So, personal brand, what does it consist of? From your values. And I'll share you some hardcore example. I'm selling copywriting courses. I train people into becoming freelancers. Well, now I'm giving them the skill, but whether they choose to work in a company or independently, well, whatever, it's about their preferences. So what should I show? If I sell freelance, then I should show some high-end life, like all the bloggers do, and people like it. And overall, yeah, I understand that I should show my level of income. And in my account, from time to time, you can see some expensive devices. And I told my audience when we moved to a new apartment, and then it broke. I showed them the some minimal refurbishment of an apartment, no golden statues and everything. Next, I showed the designers who created the design of our apartment and asked them to tell what this is, what this service was to me, why I hired those people and not some very expensive luxury designers. And I said, I don't know that, wow, I'm buying the apartment, showing a lot of money, but I showed the way we were approaching that. it wasn't easy. We were working on that hard. And I'm not interested in the audience that copywriting is just a very primitive thing. And also it's important for people to see, to understand my values. I'm not wearing Prada or Gucci or whatever. And when I was awarded in Bolshoi Theater, I boasted nice dress, but I wear very regular clothes, black t-shirts and shirts, something very basic, because that's not the value. Clothes is not the value for me. We are choosing the stores where they recycle. My kids don't buy a lot of plastic toys, but I showed how I bought books, and they saw that the receipt was over 20,000 rubles. Yeah, but this is my value. Educating my kids is a value for me. Books on shelves, it's a value for me. Here, it's something that I need to show that's valuable for me. Next. Part of our personal brand is our objectives. Objectives to lose weight, to earn something, to organize some event, get married, to meet someone. For people, it's important not only to see your everyday life, but they need to see where you are going. They need to know the end point. Well, they often like to look, to watch where you're going, but they need to understand where you're going. So, image, it's about clothes, makeup, and so on, mimics, and so on. And then the legend, the brand legend. Storytelling. For instance, when I was talking about apartment, it was storytelling. But apartment is an attribute. Of course, it does affect the personal brand perception, but the story following it can change the attitude towards this attribute. And storytelling is also very important. And I'll give you this funny example now. I have an acquaintance who used to be volunteer at the Olympic Games and somewhere else. So there was this student period for her, and she was traveling with the toy all the time, and this toy had a legend, or a story. And so the toy can have a story. I bought it there, and so on. This story. But we have created this legend that this toy becomes alive and does something good. So it's like it's a favorite tale. You can invent something else. It's not that's invented for something. It's not a bad thing. It's not that you are telling a lie, but you are nicely packaging what's there. So everything about your speech, about the words that you use, that's part of your personal brand. Yeah, we have very little time left, but I'll mention it here. We have some formal things that you can do for you to start creating your personal brand. You know, personal brand is huge building, and but there are some like 3 bricks that you can start with, some use that you. It's about the speech, how I'll be talking in stories, what I'll be telling, How will I be writing the text? What kind of words will I be using? How will I create it? For the people to start memorizing it a bit. What am I talking about? Well, we have some typical phrases with all us, some frequently used word. It can be some kind of phrasing. For instance, I had a very close friend during my university years, and when I heard her, I was really shocked. I started to figure it out. What's wrong? She's talking Russian, no accent. But I was having some concerns. And then I realized it. So, for instance, I'm asking, please take a glass of water. And she is sitting at the other end of the room, busy with something. And she cannot pick this glass up. And a regular person would say, I cannot pick it up. I
What
won't
does
be
my friend
able to
say?
take it.
I won't take this glass. And it kept being repeated. She said, I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't take this glass of water. This sounded a bit German, although she did not speak German. So what I'm trying to say is that when I heard this structure of the phrase, I could realize that was her, even if I couldn't hear her voice properly. So what I'm trying to say that if you have some special features in your speech, please keep them. Keep them. This will become part of your image. This will become part of your portrait. So some people speak in complex sentences. You know, there is a poet, a female poet, Julia Schneider. Yes, she's a female poet, a very interesting personality, a young lady, but she's very deep. Looks like she has huge human experience and background. And in her poetry, in her verses, she uses very complex words, very sophisticated words, and she knows the meaning of those words. She reads a lot, and this is part of her image. I call her image infantile intellectual. But I love her image. All in all, I don't think she created her image. This is her. This is what she is. Dyed hair, like child dresses, short skirts, fringes. I think I put down some phrases from her verses, and in just 1 second I will quote you those words. And actually, it's time for you to ask questions because we have very little time left before we end. Yeah, we do have questions, and not even one. Yes, we have about 12 questions, and I'm not sure we'll be able to cover them all. All right, I'm almost done. So, a few quotes from her verses, from her poetry. Pathetically desire to be with you. Sounds great. The veil of tears and deep dust. Success of a marginal, lazy boy. So I couldn't expect those combinations of words. So what I'm trying to say is that use your style, use your language style. It may sound a bit unnatural, but little by little, it will help you form your style. We first operate by template, and then we become ourselves. Else, also on Instagram, we have emoji. Not everyone likes them, but they are created to be used in messaging and in Instagram. So therefore, you may use emoji in your text. Not everyone have the same perception of emoji. And I always ask my client, how many emoji can we use in the text? 5, 10, 2, and exactly which ones you like or you don't like. Please tell me. This is what I ask my customers, my clients. Well, I had a customer whose corporate color was blue, and most of the emoji, 80% of them were blue. So this contributed to the signature style. And one more thing is how you address your subscribers. Well, what I do is I say literally the sharks of the pen, meaning professional writers. So this is a set phrase, but I decided to use it. Remember the provenance of a brand, the legend of the brand. I call them professional writers because I deem every subscriber, every person who tries to perfect his or her text as pen professionals, writing professionals. You all want to write efficiently. You all can learn to write efficiently if you want to, efficiently and effectively. So basically, the way I address my audience, I give them a better chance of becoming good and excellent. Well, you do not necessarily need to use it. Friends, girlfriends, this is a good way to address your audience. We always say friends, colleagues, guys. This is not a signature style. Everyone does it. Maybe you have some special way of addressing your audience. Maybe they are creative people. You can say, hello, my talented subscribers, my distinguished talented subscribers. There might be a lot of ways to do this. So try it out. This would be a small step towards creating your own style, your signature style. And if your texts are remembered, you will also be remembered. I mean, I can speak forever, but I guess let me stop here and look at the questions. Yes, we have very little time left. I just kept listening. I loved it so much. I'm sure the attendees loved your speech too. And I hope that our broadcast, well, we're recording our event. Maybe tonight I will just sit down and put down on paper the 6 types of text that we're supposed to write. So question number 1, what do you think about words we called femininities, like not a poet, but a female poet? Well, it is hard to translate it in English, but in Russian we have genders. So I will say that I'm very conservative in that end. If it's a female poet, I just said she's a poet. If it's a playwright, I say she's a playwright. And in Russian we can add a small suffix to the word to make it to change the gender of the word. So Ekaterina is saying that she doesn't use it. This is she doesn't like it, but at the same time she says, I admit that language is a living thing and it may change over time. If we didn't have a special word for a female poet in the past, it doesn't mean we will not have it in the future. So if people use those femininities, as we call them, well, you're welcome to do this. I don't use it, but I don't use them, but please do if you want to. I'm just not accustomed to it. This is my conservatism. Thank you. So I think I share this opinion. I have a friend who regularly words those femininities. She says, I'm a feminist and I will use these words. I want the language to change, and the language has changed already. I think I rather stick to the same approach as you, Ekaterina. I don't feel comfortable saying a female poet, a female playwright, a female director. The next question is from our professional audience. How to choose between employment and freelance? What are the benefits of both? And why people fail to be freelancers or employed people? That's an important thing, a matter of choice. I say to everyone, what I say to my subscribers is, everyone praises his or her position. When a person says freelance is an absolute absolutely good thing. This is not true. Well, it's entirely up to you. You may become an employee and an office worker and be happy. You may be a freelance, or you may be an employee but work from home. Well, I was an employee and I was a freelance. So actually, I was forced to move to freelance due to some circumstances. I fully understand the benefits of working in the office. So you are given a workstation, comfortable workstation, office hours, and a workday that ends when you leave office, in many cases. Freelance is about something different. You organize your workstation. Look, I sit in front of a big window, but indeed my office is on the balcony, and we spent a lot of efforts to install this workstation. We had to order special materials to make this balcony warm, to make warm flooring, an appropriate cabinet. The desk had to be ordered. It was tailor-made. We couldn't buy a ready an IKEA desk. So I had to contribute a lot to my workstation at home. Well, I have two kids. Was in the nursery school, thanks God. The other is sleeping in another room. So I used to work in the office. They loved me. They sent me to great business trips. They paid me a lot of money. And then I became a freelance, and then I had to look for clients, and I was a bit taken aback. And then I got used to it. When you're a hired employee, you may think, oh, this customer, I don't like him. This is a bad person, but I have to deal with it. If you're a freelance, you can, if you don't like the customer, you may just stop working with him or her, but it's up to you. You may try find the customer of your choice if you can. I know people for whom it is absolutely important to go to the office. This is not me. What is important for me is just to sit in front of the laptop and work and not be distracted. Some people don't like it. People degrade at home. I feel perfectly well at home. I don't feel any degradation at home, working from home. I think that's why I decided to do copywriting. How did I come to freelance? I'll tell you. As my husband, who is an entrepreneur, he says, no matter what your wife does, it doesn't matter. What's important is that she doesn't yell on me. I don't think I would ever go into entrepreneurship if I didn't go on a maternity leave. When I remembered that I had a diploma in journalism and started doing copywriting. And I think I addressed my main concern. I was afraid to degrade at home. But, you know, it happens when you just sit with your kids. You don't speak much to other people. You speak to your kids, which is normal. You use simple language with your little children. All other words disappear somewhere. Well, of course, women start watching videos and doing things, but you need to practice. And not everyone is lucky to meet a similar intellectual person at the playing ground when your kids play. But I addressed this issue, and I think when I started writing books, my issue was actually resolved. So, unfortunately, I don't think I will ever come back to the office. Well, I may work on a project, of course, at some point of time. But, you know, when you're successful in freelance, you cannot really say no to it. I feel good. I can sleep late in the morning. I can work late at night. I'm sure there are people who listen to me whose values are totally different, who value interaction in the office. They want to be given tasks and to resolve tasks. I have to set tasks for ourselves and then align on my own independently. Well, and they don't teach you this at school or university. They teach you to perform tasks, but they don't teach you to set tasks. So just rely on your values. Be guided by what you like, by what you like more and what is more important for you. Katya, I think you basically covered 5 questions at the same time, because there was a question about values, about the start of your journey. So you did it all. There are some more interesting questions, 2 more. And the rest of the questions can be answered in chat if you don't mind, and then we'll moderate the story. But because there is very little time left, please tell us about art masters. You mentioned it, you spoke about your achievement, but not everyone knows it. Yes, friends, great question. Here is a life hack. I excluded it from my speech just to mind the time, but we came back to it because I teach people write effective texts. Now we will try to write them. I think you are more loyal to me now than in the beginning of my talk. You understand the scope of my competences, at least my ability to speak for 1 hour in a row. But in the beginning of my speech, I intentionally made one copywriting mistake. If I did it in writing, from the copywriting point of view, it was a mistake, an error. I think I'm going to say a lot as answering this question, but when you, my dear friends, want to improve your own status or somebody else's status in the eyes of your audience, you start listing your achievements or his or her achievements, and listing those achievements basically breaks the good perception. So your audience have no idea what those achievements are, what are those awards. Well, the people have certain awards that, all right, maybe the professional community will understand it, but just behind my back, there is a book, Art Masters, and the silver medal, and they have diplomas and certificates on my desk. But to correct my mistake, I will tell you how I should have done it in written form. I just admitted it in the very beginning, and you were not ready to hear about me. I just mentioned one of my achievements, and so that you thought, okay, well, yes, I guess she is great. But if I did it in writing, it would be an error. So what is Art Masters on this side? This is an all-Russian competition of creative competencies. This is a championship of backstage professions. So we have singers, artists, dancers, people who are seen by people. We applaud to them. We admire them. We write to them on social networks. But those people's activities will not be possible without backstage experts. There will be no theater performance without a playwright, a director, painters, costume experts, etc. And the goal of this contest, the goal of this championship is an opportunity for those backstage people to demonstrate their skills and achievements. So to explain the value of this, I think I need to show you something. in addition to teaching you how to write effective texts, I need to show you the scale and format of this championship. Well, over 17,000 applications were received for participation in Art Masters, so this election was really tough. I didn't treat this championship seriously in the beginning. My subscribers sent me a link, and I thought, well, why don't I give it a try? Then I checked out for the awards, and they were money-wise $500,000 for the first place. And that clicked me a little bit, and I thought maybe this is something serious. I started reading about it, and the championship was in association with the Ministry of Science. This is a government acknowledgement of backstage professions. Well, just for you to understand, a copywriter is not a profession. There is a journalist, but there is no copywriter. But by taking part in this championship, I understand this is a way to show myself.
So there was a separate competence created, and we've been competing for several months, starting from portfolio. We were providing different kinds of works, and I thought that I'll be out at this stage straight away, but manager called me and motivated me to submit portfolio, and I did. Then we had several stages, and the requirements were like that. Oh, I am not promoting that. I'm for choosing your niche. Like, I'm very good at books and at text for Instagram. The rest, well, the way it goes. But the requirements were to be competent in several spheres. Text for sites, presentations, developing advertising campaign, a copywriter developing advertising campaign. So we had name, we had slogans, we had video scripts, and I was voicing my script. So there were offline, online stages. We had team competitions and so on. So it took a lot of time and effort. I was so nervous that before the finals, I was crying all the time because I invested so much energy in that. But second place is quite a good result. I won't lie that I'm happy with it, but I understand that this is recognition for copywriters in general. That's a recognition for my students that I'm high level, and the first place is a matter of chance. But nonetheless, I was taking all the first places in all the stages. So I think that this is stability, and stability is a sign of mastery. So that's the story behind Art Masters competition. And if you Google it, you'll find their website and save it for the future. There's no guarantee that a copywriter competition will be happening next year, but this is a fantastic experience. This is the country level experts amongst participants and so on, and there were all these celebrities. When there was an award ceremony, there was Bondarchuk, the movie director Posner. So the Bolshoi theater was amazing. It was the top level. So nice. I was attending the award ceremony, and I first saw you there. Yeah, Art Masters is where people of the closed professions get together. And I think this kind of competition or this kind of project is something that has to be promoted and for people Because we see some people who are cool, but it's time to remember those people who are doing a lot, and those people we don't see, like animators, cartoonists, dresses, and so on. And yeah, and I'm working on graphic design little by little, so yeah, it'll be helpful. Thank you, Katya, very much. We have very little time left, and I'll tell about next day. Oh, sorry, I have 3 similar questions, so I have to ask them. So tell us, how can you, how do they contact you and study with you? You have to subscribe to me in Instagram, but I'm sure it'll be very easy for you to find me. The next course will be launched in October. All the information will be available on my page, and I'll be doing live streams, and I'll be answering all the questions. And the main criterion is consciousness. I don't accept people who don't understand the profession. I like motivated people, but I need you to be aware, because the training will be quite hard, and I want you to get the real knowledge, which you can use in freelance or at your work. And like a mom after after the childbirth will get back to her office, say, well, I'm also a copywriter now, and please raise my salary. And that's what my assistant did. She got back to her job, and there she was really appreciated for her new skill. So you need to be consciousness. It's happening online. It lasts for 3 weeks. We work little by little, very gradually, because we have a lot of students, a lot of moms, and those people who work now. You need some balance, but you have to work hard. It's not the story that you just do nothing. Hey, thank you very much, and I'm sure, and I hope that many viewers will subscribe. And it was really interesting, and I'll re-watch the content part of your presentation. Thank you, Ekaterina. And dear friends, we are finishing with the 4th day of our International Volunteer Camp. We have only 1 day left, and I want to tell you what we are to expect tomorrow. Cultural heritage and volunteering, what kind of barriers and prospects we can have with heritage. Interactive presentation dedicated to theory of generations, how to work with different generation theories. Do you really need different approach to them? And then culture of working in social media and media volunteering. We've touched upon the subject when we're talking about personal brand, but it'll be deeper. It'll be a deeper piece of information on how you work in this sense with museums, with the zoos, and all kinds of institutions. As part of this international camp, we have trend session. Trend session is about developing international collaboration concept, working on volunteering not only within the country but on a global level. And the guys for 5 days, during the 5 days, are developing all this during the trend sessions. They are working on their blogs on finance, on international collaboration, on tourism, on heritage, and so on. And every blog has several parts to it. Where do you get funding? Who you interact with? Different countries. And all of our participants from different countries are working on this concept. And at the end of each stream of ours, they meet into different working groups, and they are creating this document. And tomorrow, they'll be presenting what they've been doing for 5 days, and I'm sure that our viewers will have to say something, and your opinion is valuable. And this document will become a founding document for international collaboration. So finally, people will be able to have their say and will take into account their opinions. So thank you very much. Thank you for viewing us. Thank you for dropping by. And I want to thank those who will watch our stream, and see you tomorrow at 10 a.m.